Good evening and welcome to Pressing Issues. I'm your host, Jason Diffendahl, and we're here for another Sunday night discussion. Welcome everybody. This is the first show in 2 weeks because we took off for Easter, but thanks everybody for joining in. I want to give a big shout out to everybody who was just on the stream watching Axel and Eric and Pete having drinks. Thanks for coming over from that stream. And we're here to entertain you for the next 2 hours. I hope they were entertaining. I don't know if I can be as entertaining as Pete, but I'll give it a shot. I'm going to introduce my panelists for tonight. First up, we have Rob. Rob, I think you're muted.
Mute.
Good evening, everyone.
And then next we have Shannon.
Hello, humans.
And next we have Matt.
Good evening, Convolush.
All right. I need to take care of a little bit of business first because I saw somebody in the chat already asking about the Hershey Park meetup. And a couple people talking about the Main Street Electrical Parade backdrop. So those of you who've been longtime watchers will know that my previous backdrop was the wall map that was in the Contemporary Resort when it opened in 1971, showing sort of like a fun map of the Disney World area, Magic Kingdom mostly. And I put that as my backdrop because I was bidding on that in a Van Eaton auction and eventually won it, and I was very excited. So that was my backdrop. Well, today, those of you who have watched the news we posted over the last week or so, you've seen a couple of posts about memorabilia that Tom had shown that was in the Heritage auction that was on Friday and Saturday. And so this Main Street Electrical Parade thing that's behind me, I'm going to show a big picture of it. This is a box that's about 3 feet square, and I don't know, 6 or 8 inches thick or something, and it's filled with fiber optic lights. And it lights up, and the fiber optics change color, so you can see the backdrop that's behind me is a bit of a different color. So it changes colors, just kind of like the Main Street Electrical Parade. This was one of the fantastic items in the Heritage auction on Friday, and I did my best to win it because this is my favorite parade in the world. So this is my new auction win. And as soon as we figure out how to get it from Dallas, we're going to put it into our new studio space in Orlando on display. So when
Congratulations.
Thank you. So when people come in to watch WDW News Tonight or other shows that are in our studio, you'll be able to see it. We'll turn it on. We just have to figure out how to get it from Dallas to Orlando, along with about a truckload of other things that Tom won. 3 foot by 3 foot is huge. Tom won something that's about 7 foot by 7 foot. So we were going to send Nick in his maxi van over to Dallas to get it, but that's not even going to fit in a van. We're going to need a U-Haul truck.
Yeah.
So this is going to be fun. But anyway, I'm super excited to see this in person because Tom got to see it in Dallas before the auction a couple weeks ago, and I have not seen it in person, so I'm super excited. But anyway, so that's the explanation for the backdrop, and the other thing. So Matt, why don't you tell us about your wife and your new child that's not here yet?
Yes.
People are asking.
Yeah. So I was on a couple weeks ago, and my wife was 38 weeks pregnant, and we were just like chomping the bit. We figured he would come early. We're having a boy, and she is still with child. So she is 40 and 5 days. So she is at her wit's end. She's a very gracious pregnant woman, but she's ready to give birth at this point. So we're just waiting for him to come finally. And so, yeah, like as we said last time, if I just jump away, my camera turns off, and my wife's at the door saying, "Hey, we gotta go." So we are having him at home. So my studio space is also our bedroom. So it'll be where the magic happens. So I'll have to move all my stuff out of here and get ready for that beautiful occasion. So yeah, so if I hop off, you guys should know why. But yeah, hopefully next week. So it's anytime now.
Yep. So we won't expect to see you on Pressing Issues for a couple of months then, I guess, right?
I'll be available. Our kids are easy, so
that's good.
No worries.
Yeah, now you just jinxed it. You know that, right?
Yeah, I know,
right? Anyway, all right. Well, that's great. Thankfully, she's still doing well, even though the baby's not quite here yet. But
she's doing great.
We'll stay tuned for that news. And then the third piece of business that I saw people in the chat asking about was the Hershey Park meetup and the visit to Chocolate World. And so I have some dates for everybody. And so one of the things I wanted to do was try to pick like 2 days in a row, so that if people couldn't come one day, they could come 2 days. And so I have 3 sets of dates, and sort of depending on interest and how many people are available on each of these dates, we might do 1, 2, or all 3 of these weekends. And if you can't tell, I'm kind of looking for an excuse to buy a Hershey Park annual pass. So the first dates are Saturday and Sunday, June 5th and 6th. The next set of dates are Friday and Saturday, July 30th and 31st. And then the week after that, Friday and Saturday, August 6th and 7th. So those are the 3 sets of dates that I've got on my calendar for Hershey Park now. And so if people are available and you want to come one of those 6 days or more than one of those 6 days, those are going to be the dates. And I think maybe we'll just do them all. So those are the dates. And so hopefully some of the staff that's from the Northeast can make it to Hershey Park at least one of those times, because I haven't met a lot of the staff. But hopefully a lot of you viewers will be able to make it to Hershey Park that are sort of local up here to the Northeast or Middle Atlantic. So yeah, we're gonna have a WDWNT meetup at Hershey Park. I'll read the dates off again. June 5th and 6th, July 30th and 31st, and August 6th and 7th. So there you go. We'll be at Hershey Park all 3 of those weekends. What's better, Hershey Park or EPCOT? Right now, Hershey Park.
Ouch.
I mean, Hershey Park just did a whole bunch of construction, and they're done with it, and now it's open. So EPCOT is still a problem.
I need ball.
But anyway, all right. So those are, I think, that's the business that I needed to take care of. You guys remember that I said I was going to come back with Hershey Park dates, and you didn't let me slide by the first minute of the show before putting it in the chat. So, but there we go. 3 weekends we'll be doing meetups at Hershey Park. All right, so let's get on to our topics for tonight. The first of the topics, the first one that doesn't, the first one on my list is this disastrous name that they've given to the what should be called mouse gear. There's some concept art out there for this shop. that's going to go where Mouse Gear used to be. And everybody was kind of just thinking, well, maybe they'll just call it Mouse Gear because that's kind of an iconic name. Maybe with their retro, all the retro posters and everything, maybe they'll call it the Centaurium. But no, we couldn't be that lucky. We couldn't even be as lucky to get a name as cool as Mouse Gear. We couldn't even get a name like half as cool as Mouse Gear. We had to get pretty much the dumbest name they could come up with for a store. And that is the Creations Shop. Now, I don't know about you, but to me that sounds like something that maybe should be in Galaxy's Edge? I don't know. Like, you make stuff there, like lightsabers and things. I mean,
No, it's actually, I think it should belong in Disney Quest.
Oh, Disney Quest.
Rest in peace.
Yeah. I mean, that's reasonable.
Or Wonders
too.
of Life.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know what's on Matt's mind. But I don't get this creation. Like, what are they? Are they selling creations there? Like, what? I don't even know what that means. I don't understand it. I mean, unless it's going to be a totally different store with different merchandise than what Mouse Gear sells, which this is the biggest store in EPCOT. I can't imagine it's not going to have like all the EPCOT merchandise just like Mouse Gear does. I don't understand the name. Like, it's one thing to be a terrible name for a store, and it's another thing for the name to not even reflect what the store is. And this name hits both of those, right? Like, if they called it something, like the most boring EPCOT shop ever, that's at least accurate, right? That's an explanation of what's in the store. But this doesn't explain anything about what's in the store. So I don't get it. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Unless they're going to have some, new line of products that you're custom making there, it doesn't make any sense to me either. They might as well have called it, Bob's money making machine or something else. But maybe there's going to be a new product that we just don't know of that's going to correlate to the name.
Yeah, and similar to what you were saying, Rob, I think if this was going to be like the biggest D-Tech retailer in all the parks, maybe this makes sense. But as Jason said, this is going to be another one of the ubiquitous shops that we see in Disney parks. It's going to be like, it's basically EPCOT's Emporium, and at least Emporium is a great name. Where Creation Shop is just very unoriginal. It almost seems like a internal like code name for it versus the actual like published name. But then they're just coming out right out with it, and I think it's just a lot of my mindset on this episode this week is pretty positive, minus this, in my opinion, where it's just kind of another instance of Imagineering not being involved. It's just another, probably some corporate suits put together this name for the shop and said, hey, we should need a place that we can sell all of our normal merch, and we don't want to spend any more brain power, which I feel like many of the corporate suits at Disney have very little, but they just pulled out of the source and said, well, shop has to be in this, and what is located in the shop? Well, there's just different creations,
But see, I don't even know that shop has to be in it, right? Like, does shop need to be in the name?
No, I agree. I agree.
Like,
no,
what other?
Like their mind.
Oh, you're talking about what they're okay? Because like most other stores don't have the word shop in the name, right? Like, unless it's like Rock Around the Shop or something where it makes sense to be there, but
the dress shop.
The dress shop,
or
right.
like
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also, like Fulton's General Store where that fits the theme of Port Orleans and
but there's a
things of
reason
that
for
nature.
the word shop to be in the name.
No,
Yeah.
I agree.
I don't think it needs to be in the name here.
Yeah,
Except
it
for
was
the
zero
fact
effort.
that the name is so stupid that if they left the word shop out, people wouldn't know that it's a shop. Like they'd think it's some kind of exhibit.
Yeah. I feel like
Yeah.
just creations would be even better than just creation shop. I don't know.
That's kind of what I'm thinking too, except then I'm sure
Yeah.
Chapek is like, well, then they wouldn't know it's a shop. How are we going to let them know it's a shop? I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But that's probably what he said, and it's like sort of absurd. But I mean, Mouse Gear, people are saying in the chat, and I'll grant this, Mouse Gear wasn't the most exciting name. It wasn't the most ingenious name. It was a name that they themed the store around, which was kind of neat, right? Like the store was very well themed with the gear theme, and so calling it Mouse Gear, at least it was well themed, right? And so the Creation Shop is another one of these like warehouse boxes like World of Disney. They could just call it World of Disney EPCOT location or something, because that's basically what it's going to be, right? Like World of Disney West or something, who knows? But this is again like an instance where I don't think there was really a lot of creativity put into the name, right? Like even if you don't like the word Mouse Gear, right? That's at least a creative name. Creation's Shop is the only creativity in Creation Shop is the creations part of the word. It's not even I don't know. Like it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I even went back. I went back to look at the neighborhoods. Sorry.
Maybe I'll put people on the screen so everybody knows who should be talking. How about that? There we go. Go ahead, Shannon.
No, so I had to go back and look at what these new neighborhoods are, which I'll probably never remember once this becomes a real thing. But, now we don't have Future World; it's Discovery, I believe, and
World Discovery,
Celebration, and Nature. None of those have anything to do with creation. I thought creation was going to be one of them. But yeah, I think the point is, and I understand what people are saying, holding on to nostalgia and Mouse Gear. It's not even about the nostalgia. It just makes absolutely no sense. And when you look at the artist rendering, it's like California chic wood plank ceilings and some big glass windows with trees. Where are those trees coming from in the artist rendering, by the way? I don't know if that's going to be part of the Moana water feature, but I don't get it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, my thoughts were maybe it's just a random shop for all of Disney's IP creations that maybe they're struggling selling elsewhere in the park.
I mean, that would at least make sense if that's what it was. But I don't think that's it. Right? Like, if the store is something about creations, then that's fine. I don't think it is. It's just going to be a random Disney merchandise shop like the Emporium or World of Disney. That's what it's going to be. That's what it's going to sell. So
they couldn't say random Disney crap store. That wouldn't have made any sense.
No, it should have been like buy your Epcot junk here.
Yeah, and I think it's a telltale sign, at least the scary omen for the budget cuts that are happening within World Celebration in particular, is that I think they've just totally there was no really, they called it World Celebration, the center of neighborhood, the center of Future World. It's just, for me, it's a scary thought that they have no creativity to make a name beyond Creation Shop in this new neighborhood. I feel like I'm not sure what the theme is going to be in World Celebration at this point, because we're not getting any hints from the name of the shops or anything like that. So I think it's going to be a real homogenous mess.
That's another
Chelsea is here,
problem.
says mousetrap.
Mousetrap, yeah. I mean, that's a good point too, right? Like this whole World Celebration thing, we're not getting the festival pavilion anymore. Some people are happy about that. I mean, things are getting slashed left and right. You know, I'm angry that we're not getting the festival pavilion slash fireworks viewing platform thing. I'm upset about that, not because we're not getting it, but because they tore down Communicore and now we're not going to get anything in its place. Like, we totally got ripped off. They're like, oh, we're going to have this thing, it's going to be so cool, and we got ripped off because we lost what we had to get this new thing, and now we're not getting the new thing. So, that's my problem.
In light of being positive about this, there is a part of me that believes there's going to be something in here, that it's not going to be just a store, that there's going to be some creative aspect, something you can do, activity, hands-on, circa old,
I mean, I hope so.
what the building used to be.
I hope so. But,
I hope, yeah.
at the same time, Disney really should have learned by now not to come out with stupid things unless they're going to explain them, right? Because this may be the coolest store. Maybe you are going to make like creations. Maybe you'll be able to go in there and like build Spaceship Earth out of toothpicks and take it home. That would all be really cool. But by coming out with a stupid name and bland concept art and not telling us anything else about the store, they've kind of shot themselves in the foot.
Some marketing director somewhere thought this would create intrigue and excitement and mystery around the new store.
These people should be fired. Whoever that was should be fired.
But we laugh.
No, yeah,
We'll all be waiting for hours to get in there and throw our money at them.
Well, that's only because there's no alternative. That's the issue. And that's why I think, people keep talking about Disney's not that bad, people are still going, attendance is higher. That doesn't mean people like it, right? Like, just because I go in a store and buy something doesn't mean I like this store. It means I want the thing that I'm buying, like a Spaceship Earth Christmas ornament or something. It's the store doesn't draw me in. The merchandise draws me in. And so the problem is that most people are not me, right? And so if you're wandering through EPCOT and it's your first time there and you see this name, is this name going to draw you in? Well, maybe. Maybe it's like clickbait. Like, it's a really intriguing name, like you said, and it will draw people in. But then they get inside and it's just a bland store full of EPCOT junk. Like, maybe that was the purpose of the name, is to intrigue people and get them to come in the door. That's really, honestly, pretty sad if Disney has to stoop to that level to get people to go in the store and buy something. That's pretty bad. And all right, so M. Clark says they have achieved their goal. You bought something. They don't care if you don't like the store. And I agree. The problem is that goal is a short-term goal, right? Like, and we talked about this before. They only have short-term goals. So their short-term goal is to sell me stuff. But long-term, their goal should be to make me want to come back. And the problem is that the store may sell me something today, but if the store is bland and boring and I don't come back, then they've basically taken the money now, but they're not going to get any more later. And that's my problem with the whole of Walt Disney World right now, is that they're so focused on the short term and getting your money now that they don't care if you actually have a crappy experience and don't come back. because the executives in charge now aren't going to be here in 5 years when you're planning your next trip. And so that's the sad part about the way Disney is run right now, and that they're only focused on their share price and making investors happy and not actually making customers happy.
I think I'd take it a step further there, Jason. I think if they were to get something tangible, some kind of measurement back from customers, whether it's surveys or some kind of consumer intercepts, and people were actually providing that direct feedback to them, things might change. But I don't know that the broader audience has been that vocal about, certainly there are small patches of those people like us who are really passionate, who are providing feedback. But until they get a large swath of their customers giving that level of feedback to them, there's really not any incentive for them to change. And, as long as Chapek can come out and say that the customer sat scores are higher now than they were pre-COVID, there's no reason for them to, in their brains, to make any fundamental changes if the customers, in their opinion, are telling them it's better than ever.
I mean, part of the problem is that I think the customers are conditioned to think that new is better, and not necessarily that this shop is the best themed. Like, the survey question isn't going to say, what do you think of the theme of this shop compared to, Island Mercantile in Animal Kingdom? That's not what the survey's going to ask. The survey's going to ask, like, does the shop have all the merchandise you're looking for? Is it bright? Is it cheery? Not, do you like the theme? Or is this if the survey questions were something like, does this feel like a store that belongs in a Disney theme park? Right? Those are the questions that I'm talking about. Those are the questions that people really, those are the questions that the people that they want to come back year after year, those are the questions those people are going to be disappointed, right? Like, it doesn't feel like a Disney store. Why did I even come to Epcot if I could just go to downtown or Disney Springs and World of Disney and buy all the stuff there? Like, there has to be a motivation for somebody who spent $130 to get into your park to want to go in your store and buy something, spend even more money, because you have a finite amount of time in the park, and most people want to spend that time on rides or attractions. Spending that time in a store instead of an attraction is not really getting your money's worth out of your park ticket. And so in order to make people want to go in that store and spend time in that store, right, like, that's the whole point of FastPass, is so that people, instead of waiting in line, can go in the store and spend money. But the problem is that if you want people to do that, you have to make them want to go in the store. Otherwise, they're going to be just happy sitting out on a bench.
Yeah, but they'll track traffic patterns, conversion rates.
Oh, I'm sure they will.
Promoter scores and all those things. And if they don't see those things being negatively impacted, until they see those things negatively impacted, you won't see really any major changes. Because guess what? That theming gets outdated. They have to update it more frequently. There's a much longer cost structure they have to do it. They amortize over a longer period of time. There's lots of reasons for them to want to have a kind of a more evergreen store, and which evergreen typically means less theming and less branding. Those are just likely all money decisions that are being made as they make it.
That's really, in my mind, focusing on the wrong thing. Like, you're building the largest store in a theme park that people pay a lot of money to get into. And you're trying to make it as bland as possible so that you don't have to spend money to keep up the theme year after year, right? Like, that is, it's kind of, I don't even know. It's just embarrassing. Like, these people that put these things into place, like, the people that put the hotel rooms that look like hospitals, like, how are these people not embarrassed? Your job is to make people want to come to the premier Disney resort in the world, and you're doing things that are going to make people come and say, why did I spend all this money to come here? This looks just like a Motel 6. This store looks like Target, except with Disney stuff. But now Target has a bunch of Disney stuff. I think it's kind of... These people don't understand... These people don't understand the responsibility of maintaining the world's Disney's premier vacation destination in the world. And what's really embarrassing is that, you know who does understand it? Oriental Land Company understands it. Universal Studios understands it. Disney doesn't understand it. And so we get stores. Look at the store that we get at Universal City Walk, the Legacy store. It's like all set up for people who are nostalgic, right? Like, Universal realizes, crap, we took away Jaws and people loved it, and they don't love what we put in its place, or in the case of Jaws, nothing. But at least we can acknowledge that people love Jaws, and so they make stores, they make masks, they make Christmas ornaments, all that talk about Jaws. What does Disney do? Well, they make a poster with an old logo on it, but they don't put any effort into actually the parks itself, right? Like, there's nothing in the parks.
One other just small thing I'll say is kind of playing devil's advocate here, Jason, is if you look at almost every measurement, the most successful retailer in the world, and really throughout all of history, has been Apple Retail. From the customer satisfaction to the amount of traffic to the sales per square foot, it is by far, in every measurement, the most successful retailer in history. I was fortunate to have a conversation with Ron Johnson, who is the guy who actually started the Apple retail stores. And the one thing that he spoke a lot about in the design of the stores were to design a store that made the product be the heroes, and the store itself kind of be something that the customers don't even think of. So when they walk in the store, they're really focused not on the theming of the store, because Apple could have put a bunch of crazy technology everywhere, but the decision was made, hey, let's design a store that will highlight that product that we're putting on the table or in the wall fixture, or so peeling away everything that distracts away from the product. And that's looking at the renders of the store. That's somewhat of what they've done here. They have a very minimalist store.
I mean, that's pretty much what they did at World of Disney too, right? Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. That's fine if you're at your local mall, because that is what you should expect in your local mall. If you pay $130 to go into a Disney theme park, the most themed theme park in the world, you're paying to go in there. The merchandise is kind of an add-on, right? Like the reason that people go into an Apple store is for Apple merchandise. The reason people go to EPCOT is not for merchandise. Well, not most people, but the reason people go to EPCOT is not to go to a store and buy merchandise. The merchandise is an add-on. Disney, people who go there on a budget and don't have the money for merchandise aren't going to go buy money for merchandise instead of eating, right? And so the other issue is that the Apple people don't have a reason to wander into an Apple store unless they want to buy something. Like if you're going to go to the mall and go to the Apple store, it's because you want to buy an Apple product. I don't think
You'd be surprised. Look at the conversion rates. I mean, a lot of people go to those stores just to look around, and it's kind of aspirational. I want to save up my money and be able to afford this, multi-$1,000 computer in the future. So I'll go look at it frequently before I actually buy.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. You're still thinking of buying a computer, right? Like the Apple Store sells things that people need. People need a phone. They need a computer. You don't actually need an expensive Apple phone or an expensive Apple computer, but you need a phone and you need a computer, right? So that's what they sell. That's what people go in there to get. When Epcot's closed and you're wandering out and you say, "Hey, let's wander through the store on the way out," there's nothing in that store that you need. Right? Like no one needs any of the stuff in the store. They want you to buy it, and if it's cool enough, you'll buy it. Most of the stuff is junk, but there's some things that are cool. But I think that's not the purpose of going. The purpose of going to Epcot is not to go into the store and buy stuff. And so the fact that they think the store should look bland so that you can see the merchandise and focus on the merchandise is exactly what you would want if you're a merchandise company and you have stores. This is a theme park that people go to on vacation. That's different. Your focus should not be getting the most people to buy the most things in a store by making it look bland. Your focus should be making them have a good time at the theme park on their vacation so they want to return. And somebody in the chat said a little while back, I can't find it now, somebody said the people, all they do is want people to come for vacation and overpay, and they don't care if they want to come back or not. And that's exactly right. It's not like if and the problem is that Disney has been doing this for years now, is that all the same junk is pretty much available everywhere else anyway, right? So if you can buy all the same stuff at World of Disney, then why waste the time you spent money for in Epcot? It makes no sense to go into a store in a park. I mean, if the park's open for 12 hours and you spend $130 to get into that park, that's $10 an hour. If you spend an hour walking around the store, then you wasted $10 that you could have spent on an attraction. So they have to get you to want to come in that store. And if it looks like any other random store in your mall, you're not going to want to go in there.
Yeah, and Jason, I think kind of piggybacking off of your point and going back to Rob's point a little bit here is, I think Disney's goal with this store is to, they're really looking to showcase the product more than they are the actual store itself, because it is in the middle of World Celebration, which we're led to believe is an extension of all of the festivals. So I think they wanted to keep it minimal so that when they have Flower and Garden merch in there and they have Festival of the Arts merch in there, that it wouldn't be clashing with the theme. And I think the real problem is not the theme of the store, is like it's maybe it is along the theme that they have created for World Celebration, because we're not really sure exactly what World Celebration is, other than an extension of the festivals. And
well, not
if
only
they
are
are
we
going
not
for
sure what it is, we're not going to get it.
Well, true, but I think that it will be a place where they're showcasing the EPCOT merchandise, which World Celebration, the festivals are a celebration. I think that's going to be an extension of the festivals and showcasing that merchandise. And I think, and to your point, is I think that I myself, when I go to the parks, I'm mainly there for attractions and food. That's just how I spend my day. Is that I love World of Disney. I think it has some really great theming in there. I appreciate all the themed shops, but I think what they're going for with this, and I'm not trying to make excuses for them, but I think they really see it as you get in, you get out, you buy your merch for the festival or the general EPCOT merchandise, and they don't want you to spend time. They don't want you to spend time in there. They want you to come in, look around for a minute, grab what you want, and get out as a means of traffic flow. Because if we have golfers in there looking around at the interesting artwork, which I think this shop will have. I was reading the articles. They're sitting here. Some unique artwork from artists. So to me, it's going to sound like there's like kind of a gallery feel to it, which I think is, again, maybe an extension of the general theme of World Celebration. But I think I think having a themed shop will be present in places like Galaxy's Edge, Pandora, things like that. But World Celebration has very minimal theming. It's more of a kind of a general area for you to experience EPCOT. That's just what they're going in. And so if I'm looking at it from, I want my shops to be themed to the lands they're in, then what they're doing with the Creation Shop, again, the name is asinine, but I think that the general theme of the shop is probably along what the rest of the theme of World Celebration is going to be. And so if that's an excuse, then that's just part of the theming of World Celebration.
Well,
and they're really going for that Apple model.
Maybe. I mean, I have problems with that, but Shannon actually had to drop off.
Yeah.
People in the chat are asking. Shannon had to drop off.
Oh, okay.
A bit of a family emergency, so I figured I'd just let her there so that we don't have a black box. But anyway, all right. Let's move on to our next topic, because I don't know.
We spent 40 minutes on the store at Epcot Center.
I know, right? I mean, that's really the biggest thing that I'm upset about this week. So honestly, Rob, why don't you tell us?
If we're ever in that store together, I will walk you through that store and point out the decisions that were made, why decisions were made throughout the entire store.
I mean, the thing is that I probably know why the decisions were made, and I just don't agree with those decisions.
You don't like them,
right? Yeah, I don't think that's the right decision for a store in a theme park. Anyway, no, we're not talking about the Moroccan chimney today. Let's talk about Disneyland. Rob, what was your take on the Disneyland ticket prices when they were released?
I was excited, and honestly, with that much pent up demand, I'm surprised they didn't take advantage of it. And
that's exactly what I thought. I thought the tickets prices would be a lot higher.
They definitely could have gotten away with that, or could have gotten away, at least at launch, of making everything be Tier 5 at the Tier 5 price, and then once we got through and capacity opened up, they could have said, "All right, we're gonna save you money by introducing these lower tiers." I'm really surprised that that's not the case.
Yeah. Yep. Me too, for sure. I'll agree.
I'm surprised that Bob didn't get involved in that one. And
I know, right? Yeah. Clearly somebody isn't on the ball here, because that's easy money. You couldn't. They could charge $20 more for every ticket and put all that money into making a really cool store at Epcot. I really think somebody dropped the ball.
Well, I'm really afraid that they're gonna notice they dropped the ball, and they're going to put that pent up demand in jacking up the prices for the resorts.
I mean, maybe, but see, my issue with that is that Disneyland is in a very different spot than Disney World in that case, where there's plenty of local hotels in walking distance that people can go to. So I don't think. I mean, if this was Walt Disney World, I'd tend to agree with you, but it's not, and I think Disneyland's a different beast when it comes to that.
That's a good point. Even with the lower attendance, you're right. They probably will have difficulties still filling up all the neighborhood hotels around the parks.
Yeah. Yep. But also, I think I wonder if it's that number one, they don't have all of these annual pass holders. Maybe they calculated that even at 15% attendance, with everybody buying a ticket, that ends up being at least, even if you buy the 5-day ticket, it's at least $80 a day. Maybe annual pass holders were such a huge percentage of park goers before the shutdown that at these same relatively low prices, they're still going to make more money by not having any pass holders. I wonder if that's the case.
I will tell you that I will be there on the 15th at 8 a.m. With a failing IT system that everyone else will be trying to get tickets for days. And I would honestly, I would have done that regardless of the price. So we were excited. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think annual passes will eventually come back too. I think nobody knows when right now, and I think when is really going to be determined on how long it takes for the pent-up demand to kind of wane. Right? Like, they're not going to...
Well, it sounds like that the governor's going to allow them, next month or the month after to go to full capacity. So, my biggest thing is, at what rate will Disney do that? Will they open at 15%? Will they go to 25%? How quickly will they get to 100% once the state of California allows them to be at 100%? Because I think that's going to be, we're going to have to be at 100%, I think, before they will allow annual passes to come back.
Probably. Yeah, probably. Or at least somewhere close to 100%. But that's also 100% pre-COVID, right? Like, not 100% with half the park closed down like we have in Florida.
Yeah, and I think these ticket prices, too, are a reflection of, it's only going to be Cali residents right now. And so if the Cali residents were allowed in, or California residents, I think they would have more of an opportunity to hike the prices as well. And I think, kind of going back to the annual passes as well, I think this is a moment for them to kind of restore some goodwill with the former pass holders, the legacy pass holders as well. To some degree, just feel like, hey, we're not trying to screw you over on the price. We're not going to gouge you. We want you here, but you have to pay normal day ticket prices to kind of even the playing field between former or pass holders and non-pass holders.
I'm honestly kind of surprised the tickets aren't like 10% higher, and then all legacy pass holders get a 10% discount. Right? Like, there's nothing. Right? Like, the legacy pass holders are pretty much screwed. Like, they don't get anything. So I would have, even if it wouldn't have cost them a dime to make the ticket prices $10 higher and then give legacy pass holders a $10 discount. I can't believe no one came up with that idea just to make legacy pass holders feel better.
Yeah.
I don't think they want legacy pass holders to feel better.
You think they want you to get so pissed that you're never going to buy a pass again?
I hope so, because that way when I go to the park, I'll be able to move without running into, a million people. The parks have been so overcrowded. They're going to have to take steps to curtail, the overcrowdedness. And I think a significant amount of that is driven by at least the Southern California pass. And they're going to have to do something about it, or you're going to see people like me and people who are international and out-of-state travelers stop going to Disney World or Disneyland because it's not the best experience.
Yeah.
And they need people to be in those hotels paying $700-800 a night.
Yeah.
and buying, $100 per person meals.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think they're going to need to price people out of the pass. I think it's going to be significantly higher. And I think we talked about this about a month or so ago, is that they're going to need to basically take the financing option away as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you could pay for the pass, you could buy the pass. But if not, you're going to have to be like a normal day guest. And I think you're right. They're going to try to improve the experience of the out of towner, because if, like, you're like me, I've never gone to Disneyland. The first time I go, I'm bumping into everyone as I walk on the street. I'm not going to want to come back.
Right.
And I think they're going to have to really look at their capacity levels, even when they're back 100%, of what's our actual capacity, what's our actual comfortable capacity that we want to have on a normal day.
Not even the question shouldn't be what is the maximum capacity, because the maximum capacity of the park is really determined essentially by fire codes, right? Like how many people can be in the same building and how many people can be in the walkway space and still be able to be evacuated safely. So that's what the capacity is based on. What Disney needs to come up with is a number that's obviously lower than that. That is, what is the capacity that makes guests feel comfortable, but not overcrowded? Because that's the capacity they should shoot for.
I agree. To have an operating capacity versus an actual
like
park
an ideal
capacity.
operating capacity. And they can control that now because they have reservations. Right? So now's the perfect time to be able to put something like that into place, because they can absolutely control how many people they let in.
There needs to be a customer enjoyment capacity. Anything above this, you're going to be miserable.
That's right.
And you're not going to want to come back. You're not going to want to spend money.
That's right. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it makes me think of my. I was say it makes me think of my time when a couple years ago, when I had my last week-long vacation to Disney. It was during the New Year's Christmas week, and we went to EPCOT on New Year's Eve, and it was our first long trip in quite some time. So we still were getting our sea legs back, being Disney vacation goers, and we went to EPCOT. We rode Frozen. We did Spaceship Earth. We had lunch and things like that, and then after lunch we left because we had our kids with us. We had our stroller. At least we were able to walk around. We went back to Polynesian and had some Dole Whips and enjoyed the rest of our afternoon at the resort, because it was just unbearable to be there during that time of day and during that day period. And I can't imagine that being the constant at a park like Disneyland, where I want to be able to walk around and look around and walk into shops and get on rides at a reasonable rate, whereas we literally couldn't walk out of the Norway Pavilion because there was just a stream of people walking past. I feel like there should have been some like traffic cop out there directing people to walk around.
Yeah.
So it's Disney. Obviously, they have the park capacities, but going forward, especially post COVID, is that you look at, like you talked about, either operating capacity, a customer enjoyment capacity, because those of us will pay the higher rates to get into the parks if we can actually walk around and enjoy our days.
Yep, for sure, absolutely.
I would happily pay twice as much to have half a capacity.
I've said that. I've said that before, Rob. I've said exactly that. And I mean, honestly, when annual passes come back, it wouldn't surprise me to see them be priced twice as much. Because that's kind of what they need to do.
I know there were a few surveys around, really limiting the number of times a pass holder can go, making them pay a lot of money if they want to actually go on the weekends, which is when obviously capacity is at its highest. So someone I'm sure is with a spreadsheet going through and figuring that out. It's a great opportunity. They have to. It's a great opportunity to increase customer satisfaction and, in a rare change, allow them to actually maximize revenue and profits by, essentially gouging those who want to be there during peak times.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. All right.
I will tell you that I'm going to be there, as much as I can over the next few weeks while they have the lower capacity, because
sure.
I think it's going to be a once in a lifetime kind of a thing.
I mean, it certainly was in Florida, and yeah, I think it absolutely will be. Um, your money will be much better spent than it would be for the same ticket price going in 2 months or 3 months or 4 months or 6 months.
I
So
I imagine being able to say, I remember back in 2021 when I was able to ride rides at the Resistance more than one time in a day.
yeah,
I mean,
yep,
people aren't going to believe that was even a reality.
Yeah.
yeah. All right, we're gonna take a break here for a minute, and we'll be back in a couple seconds. Well, I'll be here because I've been asked to put up our Carousel of Products Spring Shirt Sale. So happening right now, and for the next looks like 6 or so hours, Carousel of Products has all of their shirts on sale for 20% off. So most of the shirts are $20, and you will now be able to get them for $16 during the spring shirt sale going on right now over at Carousel of Products, and only for the next 6 hours. So get these shirts before you go to bed, because when you wake up tomorrow morning, the sale will be over. So head over there now. You can see our Donde Esta Maintenance shirt, Grand Fiesta Tour shirt. There's still a couple of California Adventure 20th Anniversary shirts over there. There's still a couple weird sizes of the cast member pantry shirts, I believe Rob said. Maybe not anymore, I don't know. But anyway, go over and check out carouselofproducts.com for our spring shirt sale. And while you're there, you can add a Pressing Issues sticker for only $2.50. So you could do that. Show everyone your love for Pressing Issues. And that's our commercial break for tonight. But I'm gonna leave this. Here's what I'm gonna do. Let me do this because Shannon is now been frozen for 20 seconds. So how about we do this? How about, to remind everybody of our spring shirt sale, we put that ad down there in place of Shannon. But so there you go. People want Spike the. I don't have Spike the Bee loaded. Maybe I'll get Spike the Bee for the end again, if you guys want it. There's like 150 bees in the chat.
Yes, I'm shopping right now.
You guys are shopping right now. Well, all right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go find Spike the Bee while you guys shop for shirts. Our next
we have
topic.
Splashman shirts left. Wow.
Yeah, there's a handful because I think they're just some weird sizes. Like, we haven't really kind of gotten a handle on how many of which size to order, so it ends up there's always a couple left of weird sizes. When you go to the Disney, that's like you go to the Disney outlet stores and everything is a small.
Yeah.
What's left is small or like 4X, because they don't have a good handle on how much of each size they sell.
I'm finally getting my Secret Swish bobsled training facility
there's
shirt.
A couple of those.
I've been wanting one for a while.
20% off. It's a good deal. It's a good deal. All right, our next while I'm looking for Spike to be, our next topic is going to be maskless photos. And I don't know that this is a big deal, to be honest. My point of view on this was that as long as it's not crowded and there's not a lot of people around, I don't see why they couldn't. Like, it doesn't make any sense that you can't take your mask off as if there's no people around you, regardless of if you're in a park or not. So that's my thought. I think this has been a long time coming. It honestly kind of surprises me a bit that this happened now. Like, I guess they thought spring break crowds would be over by now, and they're kind of not. but I guess they thought spring break crowds would be over and things would be sort of calming down, and this makes sense to do it. But honestly, I think at the rate things are going in Florida, especially, you know, things seem to be happening with COVID restrictions a lot faster than I expected anyway. Um, so it may be the case that, maskless photos are here for a little while, and then,
Yeah.
at some point masks are going to go away altogether, and it may be sooner than any of us sort of expected.
Yeah.
So to me, this isn't
No, yeah,
really big of a deal. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually super excited about this. I have our trip coming up in July. My daughter's first trip, my newborn will be his first trip. We're excited to be able to just have some nice photos in the parks. And I know a lot of people I know some people in chat are kind of triggered by, oh, how are you not upset about this? It's, if you want to wear your mask, you can wear your mask. It's totally your right to do that. But as me, if I feel safe and those who are vaccinated feel safe, to take off their mask, take a photo in open air, then that should be their prerogative. And that's just kind of my initial thought on it. And it's not like they're allowing maskless photos inside. That'd be a totally different conversation.
Right.
You're outside in the Florida heat. A lot can be said for, can the virus live in warm weather? Can it survive the bleaching of the sun? Again, they're not allowing it when you're within 6 feet of another person. You're supposed to be distanced, things like that.
Right.
So there's still restrictions to it, and this has been going on at Universal. I think I brought this up when I was on the show a few weeks ago. Is that Universal is doing this with their Raptor encounter? Their cast members have taken photos of guests socially distanced in the parks for, I think, about a month or so now. There has been real no case, like, we don't know of many cases that have come from the theme parks. So if things have been safe, and if we're outside in the heat, in the sun, and we are distanced from one another, then I think there's no real issue with it. And I'm excited to have some good photos when I'm there in July, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think of it one other frame to look at it. I think this is going to allow a lot more of the PhotoPass photographers to get back to work. It's my understanding that product is a huge profit center for Disney, and people wanting to spend the money on the PhotoPass when they had their masks on. So I think this is a huge opportunity to drive additional revenue and profit for Disney, but then hopefully that'll equate to a lot of the photographers getting back to work.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And so before I forget, shout out to Jarrett Burns for the super chat. Thank you, Jarrett.
Woohoo!
Jiminy Crockett says the PhotoPass cast members are going to face hundreds of maskless people all day long. At this point, Disney has offered vaccinations to all their cast members, and so I think the cast members probably aren't that concerned about having to face maskless people all day long. So if we kind of talked about this a bit earlier, that the cast members really are much more focused, most of them anyway, are much more focused on getting back to work than they are worrying about wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. And so with the cast members being vaccinated now, it doesn't matter whether the people have masks on or not. With 95+% efficacy on the vaccine, it really just doesn't matter.
And if you look at actual PhotoPass photographers, I mean, they're typically 12, 15 feet away from the guests anyway. They're not right up in their face. They're not
honestly,
even 6 or 8 feet.
Like, honestly, PhotoPass is probably one of the better jobs to be able to stay distanced from people as much as possible. Like, much better than like a server in a table service restaurant.
they're
you know,
outdoor. The photographers themselves will wear masks, so there'll be a small amount of protections. They can also have the face shields as well. And then they have nice long optical zoom lenses where they can keep a further distance away from the guests.
Yep.
No, I agree. And I think that and oftentimes you see cast members wearing multiple masks anyway. So as long as this assumption that we've been living under the past year, masks work, then these cast members should be safe. And if we've been living in this presupposition that masks protect us from COVID, then if we are live in that world, then the cast members should be safe from the particulates from someone 12 feet away. Even if those particulates even make it 12 feet, it still remains to be seen. But I think it's a time to get back to normalcy. I think it's a time vaccination levels are up. If you choose to be vaccinated, vaccination levels are up, and we're going to start reaching herd immunity, and this is one way to do it.
Yep, I agree. I'm here looking for Spike the Bee, and I can't find it. But I'll keep looking. So people don't get disappointed. Let's talk about. Let's see. Blue Bayou serving alcohol. What do you think about that?
Rob?
I think it's going to be great. I mean, what a great place to sit back, have beer, while you're having a nice dinner there. You already are limited to there in Disneyland as to where you can get alcohol anyway. So being able to add that into it, I love that restaurant. I'm sure you guys have been there. If you haven't, it's a great experience. But it seems like a fitting place of all the places in the park to allow alcohol. That Blue Bayou is the right one.
Yeah, that makes sense to me too, right? Like I'm surprised that Blue Bayou hasn't had alcohol already, to be honest. It is the place in Disneyland that would make sense to have alcohol. And so, I mean, it's as Juniper says in the chat, Club 33 is right upstairs, and they have alcohol, so it makes sense. It's the most expensive restaurant in Disneyland, not the resort, but in the park, it's the most expensive restaurant. So it makes sense. I think clearly this is one of those instances where people are. I think society has changed a lot since 1955 when Walt decided not to have alcohol in the park. I mean, honestly, society has changed a lot in a lot of other cases with much more recently. This will segue into Trader Sam. Society has changed a lot in a lot of different ways. And a lot of those ways are much more recent. And Disney has responded. And so the fact that they have only now decided that it's okay to sell alcohol in certain restaurants in the park is honestly a huge surprise, and it's a change that's probably 25 to 30 years later than I would have expected, to be honest.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, Jason. I really hope they take steps to keep Disneyland from turning into EPCOT.
I think they have to, right? Like, I mean, they can't allow that to happen because Disneyland's not big enough.
But I think limiting it to a sit-down restaurant, that it's almost impossible to get a reservation at anyway.
Yeah.
So you're going to be serving a small number of people, and you're not there long enough to really have too many drinks. But I'd hate for them all of a sudden to allow every pop-up, every pop-up that comes up to serve alcohol, every walk-up window to serve alcohol. As long as they really constrain, the locations in which you can get it. That's great.
And it's like it's kind of like, well, Epcot, you can have alcohol all over the place. Magic Kingdom, you don't. California Adventure, you have alcohol all over the place. Disneyland, you don't. But one or two places is not going to ruin the whole thing. That's my thought.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it really comes down to the cast members just being aware of the people they're serving. It just comes down to them not over-serving. And to your point, Robin, and it's like as long as they don't have it at the walk-up windows, then we shouldn't be at the cusp of where EPCOT is. It's like you said, it's a sit-down restaurant. People are going to enjoy a nice drink with their meal. That should be something they should be able to do. It's not like it's a dry county or anything like that. It's not even a dry park at this point.
And it's and the restaurant doesn't have a bar, right? Like you have to go in there and eat a meal to get the drink. You're not going to be able to just go in there and sit at a bar and get a drink. And I think that's the biggest thing.
And honestly, if you really wanted to get a drink, you could always just walk to downtown Disney and have all the drinks you want and come back.
Right.
But I'm glad there's some controls.
Yeah. No, there should be. There absolutely should be. Like I said, I think if any place at Disneyland should be serving alcohol, it's Blue Bayou. Let's see. Oh, Dawn in the chat says, I love having to factor idiots into my decisions. If people could actually follow the rules, no one would have to worry. I agree 100%, Dawn. Unfortunately, I think that's pretty much every time I'm at Disney World, I have to factor idiots into my decisions. And I don't like it either, but it's kind of the way things work, unfortunately.
Let's be clear. You have to factor idiots into your decisions and everything that you do all day, every day.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I will say the one place I think that needs alcohol in Disneyland is in New Orleans Square, Mint Juleps. I think it's the one thing I think is kind of odd about that location is they don't have alcohol for a Mint Julep. Again, I'm hoping to go to Disneyland in the next year or two. That's one place I think that we might see alcohol become present as well, because my understanding is that the Mint Julep at the Mint Julep bar is non-alcoholic.
It's not alcoholic.
So I think that might be.
It's also not really even a Mint Julep anymore. It's very disappointing. It used to be really good, and now it's bad. But that's a different topic altogether.
Yeah, I've always heard about the Mint Julep bar in New Orleans Square, and when I heard that it was not alcoholic, I was very confused. So I think that's one place that we might see an addition like that. But I think having all the kiosks, again, I don't think we'll see that yet. Hopefully we won't.
I mean, maybe when annual passes are like $3,000 and the park is mostly empty, then it will be fine. It won't make a difference. But anyway, okay. Let's see what else. PhotoPass watermark. So we talked a bit about PhotoPass and the PhotoPass photographers coming back to work. And somebody in the chat, I don't remember who it was, sorry, said, isn't it a coincidence that the same week that they allow maskless photos, they started putting these PhotoPass watermarks over the on-ride photo screens, so that you can't just take a picture of them anymore. I have some. I don't think it rises to the level of a rant, but I think there's some things about that I think I don't know. It's just dumb. But I'll let you guys go first.
Yeah, and I personally I'm fine with it. If you go to any other theme park and you go to the photo kiosk, there's gonna be a watermark on there. At least here in Indiana, there's Santa Claus, Indiana. We've got Holiday World. If you go on any of the roller coasters there's a watermark. I think it's fine. Even if you go into your My Disney Experience app, there's going to be a watermark there as well. And unless you have the PhotoPass option activated on your account, and pass holders have that already, so you can easily look at your photos in your app for pass holders. And for those of us that go who like to have all the pictures as possible, if you're going to be paying for it, it's already there. And I don't think it really hurts anything really. It probably makes it more enticing to purchase the PhotoPass if you don't have it. And also, sometimes those photos even make it to your account anyway. So I think it's, for those who are upset about it, I think it's just not a big deal. It's just part of going to theme parks, in my opinion. have that watermark on the big display. And if you want your photos, just pay for the photo pass. If you're going there for a multi-day trip, it's not very much per day, and especially if you go with a family, it's worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the PhotoPass service was always designed to be a service. It's not a free solution. So those people who were just taking pictures of it, obviously, they knew that they were circumventing the system in the first place. So, I don't feel that there's a loss with them putting the thing. It's just protecting their service.
Yeah. I think, Matt, like you said, every other theme park in the world has a watermark there. And Ghost Ride in the chat said Busch Gardens in Tampa will tackle you if you try to take a picture of the screen. I mean, I'm honestly surprised that this didn't happen years ago. I think what doesn't make sense to me is that people spend, again, a lot of money to go to Disney World on a trip. And if you want a picture, if there's a really good picture that you want to memorialize your trip, then spend the $10 to get the picture. Right? Like a picture on your phone of a screen that's 10 feet away isn't good for anything, really. I mean, you can hardly see the picture anyway when you take a picture of the screen. So if you want to memorialize your trip and have a nice reminder with a nice picture, then just go buy it. And if you don't, well, a picture of a screen with your picture on it versus having a watermark on it, to me, they're all kind of equivalent, right? Like, if you're going to take a picture of the screen anyway, it's going to be crappy. And so to have a watermark on top of it, you're already have a crappy picture. They're just making it a little more crappy. So to me, taking a picture of the screen never made sense anyway. The time it made sense was when you used to have to go and buy the picture, and you needed to know what the number was on the screen. So you'd take a picture so you'd have the number, so you wouldn't forget what the number was by the time you got to the register. It's also good if your photo pass doesn't work, as Ghost Ride just said, because then you can call them and they'll try to find the picture and put it back on your photo pass. So that is absolutely a reason to do it too. But as Brian mentioned, it's a big bottleneck. Yeah. It's a huge problem after the ride. Some places more so than others. Like Splash Mountain, I think, is pretty bad. Tower of Terror isn't quite as bad, it seems. I don't know why one is worse than the other, but it does make a bottleneck. And if you have the annual pass and photo pass comes with it, you get the pictures, right? You want to have at that point you've already paid for it, so as long as it's on your account, you don't need to worry about it. I've actually had, I was, the first year they added photo pass to the annual passes, I was super excited and got all kinds of pictures. Nowadays, I almost have to purposely remember to go get a photo pass picture, because I kind of just don't sometimes, right? I don't like waiting in lines is mostly the thing. But if I'm by myself at EPCOT and there's a photographer at the front in front of Spaceship Earth, or in the back, and I can get a picture of myself with Spaceship Earth in the background, I'll do it if there's no line. Just because it's free and I can. And, honestly, like you said, Rob, PhotoPass is almost 100% pure profit. Because if all the photographers are out there, they're paying their salary to begin with. They're all out there. anyway. So any incremental additional revenue they get from PhotoPass is 100% pure profit. And so any little thing they can do, to add, even 5 or 10% more people paying for photos, go straight to the bottom line. And yeah, Brian said, this is very similar to what I just said. People pay thousands of dollars for a vacation and $5 for a water, but they won't get Memory Maker for like $120 or $150 or whatever. Like, that's such a small portion of your overall expense. Yeah, the PhotoPass robots they have. The other thing that's really cool is in Galaxy's Edge, they have this like 360 PhotoPass robotic thing. And I did that I guess it was a couple months ago. It was end of last summer, I think. And it comes up with a really crazy like 360-degree photo of with you in it, and it's kind of cool. But honestly, I think one of the best bargains of anything at Walt Disney World is the Memory Maker. And the fact that it comes free with all the annual passes is spectacular. But $150 for unlimited photos for a week at Disney, where you spend 15 grand or something, like the guy that got arrested. That photo pass is like 1 to 2 to 3% of your overall expense for the vacation. And I think in the long run, that's going to be a lot of what you have to remember your vacation by, right? Like a picture of a screen on your phone, it's not what you're going to pull out and show people, hey, look what I did on my trip. I took a picture of a screen because I didn't want to pony up the money for the picture, is what you're showing them. But I mean, you could for over the course of a week, you could easily get 100 or more PhotoPass photos. So at the end of it, it's like they're like $1 a piece.
Yeah.
And you get high-res photos that you can download. Rob, I think you're muted.
Yeah. I would say one thing they need to fix is if they're not going to offer the tap points after the ride to improve some of those autonomous, like the face matching or however they do it in the ride vehicle. Because I know that I've probably 5 to 6 on-ride photos that I totally missed out on my last trip. And again, they're on-ride photos. I think the more memorable ones are in front of the park icons and things like that. Yeah. But sometimes if you're on your favorite ride, like Splash Mountain, something like that, Splash Mountain's a tap point, but and I know that Slinky Dog Dash, I have had issues on that one, especially. And again, you have to worry about, but if we're talking about bottlenecks as well, is that improve that technology and just apply it to all the other rides. I think that would make those exits a lot easier too.
It would, and that, I think, so that's one big drawback, is that the technology doesn't work as well as it should. So people scan the tap points even though they don't need to. But now on top of that, now you've got your ticket on your Apple Watch or whatever. You might not even be wearing a Magic Band. So True. Again, this is all wrapped up in the downfall of the Magic Bands, really. And this was one of the great features of the Magic Bands, was the long-range RFID that automatically captured your photos and put them on your account from an on-ride photo op without you having to do anything. That was fantastic. It was amazing. It's going to be like, that was a great feature that I think most people didn't even know existed, and it's, again, just sad that Disney wasn't able to make Magic Bands live up to their full potential.
Yeah.
Can we have a show dedicated to Magic Bands? Hatbox Ghost asks. I don't know if we had that much to talk about magic bands, but
Jason,
Well, and
you could fill an hour by just breaking out and showing all of yours and Tom's magic
yeah,
bands.
yeah, that's true.
That could be a full show.
That's true.
Hey, did you guys? While we're talking about PhotoPass, did you guys see the Capture Your Moment product? That looks actually pretty compelling, where you could pre-book 20 minutes with a photographer, and they will just spend all that time with you at Magic Kingdom. And it's only like, I think it's only $50 I saw. And you can get you can map out all those key photos you want and have the photographer follow you around.
Yeah, no, that's a great, I mean, that was something that you could do before. Like, you could actually, it costs a lot of money, but you could pay to have a Disney photographer. Like when I got married, one of the options we had was to do a photo shoot in the Magic Kingdom before park open, and I want to say it was like $750.
Yeah.
But we had an hour, and so the photographer picked us up at our hotel, and we actually drove into the Magic Kingdom on Main Street through the gate next to Tony's Town Square restaurant.
Wow.
And then we drove down Main Street to the castle, and the photographer just parked his van there, and we hopped out, and we got pictures in front of the castle and all around, and they timed it so that it was dark, so it looked like it was nighttime when you got there and got your first pictures. But by the time you were done, in the hour, you went through a whole hour, by the time you were done, the light was out. And so then you got the same photo again in the same spot, but this time it was daytime. And it was really cool. It was absolutely phenomenal.
When he said $750 at first, I'm like, that sounds ridiculous. But then once you just walked us through all that, like, that's a bargain.
Yeah, right. It was $750 was actually pretty reasonable. Like, in terms of how much you spend, in terms of how much we spent on the wedding overall, that was pretty dang reasonable.
So that experience is pretty incredible. But the fact they have this, in the past you'd have to get a photographer a longer period of time. So to be able to pay $50 for just 20 minutes, I think that will appeal to many more.
That's great. That's fantastic.
Guests.
Yeah. I think after the show I need to book one of those for my trip in July. That sounds awesome.
It is.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
I was listening about it. I did a little research. Like, you go and you check in the front at the front of the park. And then almost everyone wants to go to the castle, so the photographer will just go with you wherever you want. You tell them exactly where you want photos beforehand, and then when your time starts, you rush off and you have 20 minutes to get as many pictures as you can squeeze in.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Matt K in the chat is saying that they still offer those photo packages. They have 3 routes that go through the Magic Kingdom. He thinks the price is around $1,500 now, which is, I mean, mine was in 2003, so 19 years at 100% inflation is actually not too bad as far as Disney goes. So yeah, $1,500 sounds about right. But that makes $50 for 20 minutes seem like a bargain. The problem is that $50 for 20 minutes is in the park while the park is open, and so the $1,500 package is you're in the park with nobody around.
That's the baller package,
right? And I mean, you would wear your wedding dress and tuxedo, right? Like, you can't. I don't think they would let you in the Magic Kingdom in a wedding dress. So realistically, the only way to get a picture of yourself in a wedding dress in front of the castle is to do one of these packages. But for most people, $50 for 20 minutes is a heck of a deal, actually. But yeah, that's kind of that's a neat option. Makes a lot of sense.
That's amazing.
All right, the last thing on our it's a costume. Yeah, you could go during Halloween and claim your wedding dress as a costume. The last thing on our agenda for tonight is Trader Sam being removed from the Jungle Cruise. I don't want to go first on this, so I'll let one of the two of you go first.
I'll go
Come
first real
on,
quick.
you go ahead.
Okay. So I'm thinking a lot about this, and I know that one of our fellow panelists, Desi, has Pacific Islander origins, she made a comment in our Slack is that she's not offended by it, and I think that's a really interesting take. Is that there's a lot of us, he's a white guy, telling Disney what to do, and there's a lot of people out there that want to tell Disney what to do. I think going forward, if they want to be inclusive, they want to make these sensitive, more culturally sensitive decisions, they really need to start going to the people that they potentially are offending with these rides, these characters, and really get their thoughts on it, and going to leaders of those cultures and saying, hey, does this offend you? And if so, we want to fix it. And that's how they should approach it. But to me, looking at it, obviously it's a classic attraction and we don't want it to change. And looking at Trader Sam in Disney World, it's obviously a caricature. He's heavy set, wearing a hat and holding an umbrella, and I think that could be offensive as a caricature of that culture being influenced by the colonialism that was the English and European influence in those areas. Whereas Disneyland, we see a lot more of a realistic depiction of those cultures potentially. And if those people are offended by Trader Sam in Disney World, I would agree with that. It's a caricature that maybe we should definitely re-examine. Whereas if they touch Trader Sam in Disneyland, I think it's a little more historical interpretation of a culture that existed, because Jungle Cruise is kind of in a different time period, and there's even cultures today that dress that way. That's their cultural dress. Trader Sam in Disneyland isn't so much a caricature as Disney World is. So for me, I think going forward, if we're going to make these cultural decisions to be more inclusive and not offend people, let's see if we are offending them. If those people are offended by it, and not have the mob kind of dictate what we do, because I'm not a Pacific Islander. I grew up seeing Trader Sam as just a character on a ride, and so if those people of those races are offended, let's change that. I think that's the discussion we can go forward, looking at Jungle Cruise, Splash Mountain, and all the other places across properties. And again, looking at the Indian scenes in Peter Pan and things like that, those are caricatures, and if to somewhat poke fun. And so if we shouldn't be poking fun at people necessarily. Obviously, there's time to have fun and jokes, but we need to look to those cultures first and see if they are offended by those things, and we need to make those changes. But for me, I definitely saw Trader Sam and Disney World coming, literally leaving the ride. Whereas I think there's not necessarily a need to touch Disneyland's Trader Sam, just because I think Mark Davis did his research and was able to provide a really close depiction of Pacific Islanders, and because they're depicting cannibals, and those people have existed in history, and that's what they look like. And so again, this is coming from a white dude sitting in the Midwest, and so trying to be as sensitive as possible. So we should look to those cultures to get the final word on this thing.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point that you make, is that I don't know that Disney is consulting the people that would be offended.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Rob.
I say, I'll just preface this by saying we don't know that they haven't reached out to those people either, and you could certainly understand why, based on that depiction, why it might upset some people. So I don't think it's, it's a far cry to say that that people will be offended by that depiction of their culture. Also, on the less culturally sensitive side, did it really add that much to the ride itself? I don't think that it did. So removing it, if there's really almost no downside to the removal of it, and even if there is a small subset of people who are offended by it, what's the harm in removing it from the ride? It's kind of, there is some goodwill to be gained, but again, I don't see that there's a huge negative.
I will tell you what the negative is. The negative is that maybe this is offensive to some people. Maybe Splash Mountain is offensive to some people. The negative is that if you start, this is a slippery slope. And where do you draw the line between, there's one person in the entire world that's offended by something, right? Like maybe, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a stupid example. Maybe there's one person in the whole world that's offended by the dog on the front porch of the house in Living with the Land. I don't know why they'd be offended, but I also don't know why a lot of people would be offended with Trader Sam. I know why. I don't know why a lot of people would be. But if there's one person that's offended by the dog on the screen porch because he looks like evil character from some random movie, I don't know. I'm trying to come up with the stupidest reason possible, right? But if Disney says, "Oh, well, this is offensive, we're going to take the dog out," where does this end? But
they're not taking the dog out.
But
they're not taking the dog out. So they're drawing a line somewhere, and the line is not the dog.
The problem is, I don't think they found the person that's offended by the dog yet. I think this whole thing is just starting, right? I think this is gonna snowball at some point, and Disney is gonna have to draw the line somewhere. That's my concern. Is that this is a slippery slope, and this whole thing is gonna snowball, and everybody they're gonna just rip stuff out of all over the place. The Morocco penis, right? Maybe there's people that are offended it looks like a penis, but it's not Moroccans that are offended because that's clearly Morocco designed and built and operated the pavilion in EPCOT for 20 some years, right? So it's not Moroccans that are offended by the big penis, and everyone else who's offended by the big penis is seeing a penis when there's not a penis there, right? It's not. So that's the kind of absurdity that I think this leads to, is that if you don't ask the people who sort of have the right to be offended, but you ask random other people that have no right to be offended and they get offended, and then you yank stuff out, that's where this gets to be a problem.
So here's the reality. You and I, for all we know, Disney has received thousands of letters and emails about Trader Sam. We're making judgments based on what's offensive to us or what we perceive Disney done. We don't know that Disney may have had meetings with tribal heads. They're not going to come out, nor do they need to come out and explain that to us. But it's a private business, and if they made the decision to remove it, they made the decision to move it. Now, if they remove a dog for no perceived reason, sure, they have the right to do so. But, I think the conversation would look a little different.
They have the right to remove the Great Movie ride, too. But it pisses a lot of people off, and they're upset. And the problem is that if you go too far down this slippery slope and more people are upset than actually offended, then you lose business. You lose customers.
Yeah. Do you really think there's going to be anyone
and
who's not going to go to Disney because Trader Sam is gone?
I mean, there's people saying they're not going to go to Disney because they aren't renewing annual passes, or they can't buy an annual pass or whatever. There's people that are say anything, it's not specifically Trader Sam. It's the whole lot of things altogether. Anna in the chat says it's this current cancel culture that's causing a problem when there really isn't a problem. Like the Morocco penis is a perfect example. This is not a problem. It's an authentic representation of a architecture from Morocco. It's not a problem. But people make it a problem.
It makes for a lot of really funny photos on Facebook too.
Well, sure it does. Sure it does. But it's not a problem. It's not a problem that needs to be fixed. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things that make funny photos on Facebook that you can do at Disney, right? It's not a problem that needs to be fixed. What they need to do is, and people made this argument about Song of the South and why Song of the South should come out on DVD. It's offensive, but they need to preface it with an explanation of the period in which it was made and how wrong it was, but that's what America was, yada yada yada. I mean, there's some truth to that, but this Morocco penis thing is like if people are writing letters to complain that there's a big penis in Morocco, they need to put up a sign that says this building was designed based on an actual structure in some city in Morocco, and show a picture of it, right? Like the problem isn't that people are offended. The problem is that people are dumb and get offended about things that aren't offensive. A building is not offensive if it's an actual structure that they built it based on in Morocco.
Yeah, and I think to circle back to Rob's point a moment ago is that why wouldn't they want to advertise that they have been talking to these cultural groups?
Yes,
like
that's the other thing.
It's a perfect PR move for them,
right?
Is that they're like, hey, we talked to these Pacific Islander organizations, these leaders that said they're offended by it. And I think going back to the Morocco penis issue is that isn't like a form of racism, and for us to say as white people that we are offended by a Moroccan piece of architecture. Where is it our role to say that like that's offensive to us? Where it's like that's their culture. We are walking into Morocco, the Moroccan Pavilion, to experience someone else's culture. And if we want to come in and say, hey, we're offended by your culture, how does that make us any better than the Trader Sam caricature? Like it's this constant back and forth of we are offended for the offended's sake, but not actually going to the people that we think are offended. If we want to make Splash Mountain better, then let's go to the Black community and say, hey, are you offended by this? Or even just the Southern community. I think, yes, the Song of the South movie is a misrepresentation of the life of slavery that those people experienced. But can we frame it a different way where it's just the Southern experience across the ages? Like those characters are in some racist content, but so was Mickey Mouse. Like we forget that there was Donald Duck in a Nazi uniform and Mickey Mouse in these shorts that were very offensive. But we need to learn to separate the character from the content. And if we are going to go forward in this new age of making sure that everyone's not offended, and I think that's important. That's important. If someone is offended that we're doing something racist, we should fix that. So let's go to the people that are actually potentially offended by these things and have those conversations, and not come from this me as a white guy and all these. I see so many white people on Twitter and things like that getting angry about these things, and not the people that are part of those cultures. We should be talking to them and see if they are offended by that. And I think the Morocco penis situation is a very slippery. It's a big problem because we're saying that we're offended by Moroccan culture because they have a phallic-like chimney. Like that's just their cultural design.
Yeah,
and we just got to live with it.
Rebecca in the chat brought up this is basically virtue signaling by the Walt Disney Company, right? That's what it is. Because if they actually went and talked to people that are offended and made a big deal about it, then they're actually putting their money where their mouth is. You know, they're actually taking into account the opinions of people who have gotten offended. But by them just saying, we're going to do this because some people think it's offensive, that's virtue signaling. That's the difference. And I think that's what you're saying, Matt.
I agree.
Is that it's one thing to just be virtue signaling and try to appease and appear to be woke or whatever the hell you want to call it. It's another thing to do it because you actually believe that it's wrong and you want to fix it, and you go to the effort to understand why people think it's wrong and how is the best way to fix it. And maybe the people that think Splash Mountain is offensive don't want you to remove it. What they want you to do is explain why it's offensive, and, you know, because I think I've said this before. George Santayana said, those who forget the past are doomed to repeat it. If we whitewash all this offensive stuff from existence, then no one's going to understand why it happened, why people were offended by it, why we decided to stop doing it or saying it or whatever, and it's just going to happen again. Right? Like, that's the problem, is that you need to educate people as to why things are offensive instead of just sweeping them under the rug.
And I think if they want to be authentic about these changes, if they want to be authentic about actually caring about the issues of race and racism, is that it's the perfect time for them to educate us on, like, this is why we're getting rid of Trader Sam.
I mean,
we talk to people that are offended by it, and we're going to make it better, or maybe not to even just get rid of him. Like,
right.
What we're doing as well is to get rid of, like, we're just like saying these cultures don't exist. That's why my point earlier is, like, let's bring in the Trader Sam from Disneyland, who is a much more closer representation of Pacific Islanders and the cannibalistic culture of the past. And, like, they existed.
Right. Trader Sam was based on a real person, right? It's not something someone made up. Those people actually existed, and they traded heads, right? Like, it's real. It's history. It happened. And so you can't say this is a caricature when it's not actually a caricature. It's real. Desi says in the chat, I don't need white people to tell me why I should be offended by something I don't find offensive. Yeah, I mean, that's true, right? But I mean, Trader Sam existed. There was actually people in history that had heads, and they traded heads. So if they want to take the Trader Sam out and put in a more authentic recreation of an actual person that existed in history that was a head trader, I'm all for it. That's great, because that's historical accuracy. And I think one thing that we should all strive for is historical accuracy. Maybe it wasn't a good part of history, but if you're accurate and you can educate people as to why these things happened and why they were bad, then you shouldn't be ashamed to show a historically accurate perception of something.
I agree.
All right, it's almost it's almost the end of the show, which means we have to go into the positive issues segment part of the night, where all of us spend a couple of minutes talking about something positive. So go ahead. Why don't you go first, Rob?
You know, the biggest positive for me is, you know, all the details coming out for the reopening of Disneyland, which means a lot of cast members are going to be coming back to work. Many of them have already been recalled and they're doing their training. So, you know, all those people in Southern California who have gone a year without, you know, either not working at all or having to take side jobs, are going to be able to come back to the parks and start to bring magic back to the customers and the guests coming through those doors. So super excited, and I'm super excited to be able to hopefully be there as close to opening day as possible, because we've all been waiting for this day for, you know, over a year now, and it's getting closer.
Yeah.
Cool. Yep. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. So my positive news of the week is kind of IP related. It really is IP related. I'm really excited to see the images that we're finally getting from Avengers Campus. I think it's going to be a fun addition to Disneyland, or California Adventure. I think it's steps in the right direction for kind of a return to good theming. I think all the set pieces I've seen so far are beautiful. The Sanctum Sanctorum with Doctor Strange looks awesome. I love seeing the jet and just everything around the campus. I think it looks really beautiful, at least from the photos. And Rob, I need some help getting those Funko Pops when those come out. So we should talk about
absolutely.
those. I just can't wait. I haven't gone to Disneyland yet, but we're planning a trip in the next year or two. And so I'm really excited to get a really great experience, not only Disneyland, but California Adventure, with the really great offerings they're offering there as well. And then the second thing is I'm really excited to see what this real lightsaber is that Josh Samaro teased during
cool.
that press junket. I think I'm hoping, just hearing from Josh Samaro and just the reports from that call, was that they're looking at really investing technology in the park, and I'm hoping that we get some more additional add-ons to Galaxy's Edge. Some of the things we've been promised, hopefully they'll start trickling in the next couple years. As a big Star Wars fan, diehard Star Wars fan, I want that land to be good. And I have a lot of thoughts about Galaxy's Edge. I've really been thinking about it and doing some more research on it. I have some thoughts for another episode on Galaxy's Edge, but I'm really hoping that those turn out to be really nice and not just the ones you can buy from the store. I hope they're nice metal hilts and things like that. So I'm excited to see what they're doing with these new lands and sprucing them up.
All right, I guess it's my turn now. I don't know.
Thinking hard.
Kind of crabby today. What'd you say, Rob?
I said you're thinking hard.
I'm thinking hard. So one of the things that I guess anytime that Disney does something and I'm like, I can't believe they did that. That was so dumb. Sometimes that's a positive thing. Usually it's a positive thing. And so what I'm going to say is the positive thing is that Disney came out with ticket prices for Disneyland when it reopens that are actually reasonable. I can't believe they're that low. That's a positive thing for all the Californians that have gone without for over a year now. You know, we in Florida were kind of lucky that we were only closed for a couple of months, but you guys out there were closed for over a year. It's going to be 13 months, over 13 months, and I think it's a really positive thing that they came out with ticket pricing that's not price gouging, because they absolutely could have. I don't know why they didn't. It doesn't make any sense to me that they're not trying to gouge people to get into Disneyland, which is probably like the most pent-up demand for anything ever in the world, right? Like people camp out for tickets for concerts and things. You know, people camp out for merchandise. this is more anticipated than any of that, and the fact that they did not try to price gouge people when they reopen is an incredibly unbelievable thing to me. Like, somebody somewhere still has a soul and came out and said it's wrong to price gouge people. And somehow they went along, the rest of the company went along with it. That's fantastic. That means somebody somewhere in Disney management has their brain in the right spot and their heart in the right spot and understands their customer and understands how upset their customers would be if the prices were like doubled. And so that gives me a teensy-weensy bit of hope that one of the people in the company might someday rise through the ranks and be CEO and know how this company is supposed to work. So, there you go. I'm just looking through the chat quick to see. There's a lot of commentary about it not being Disney's responsibility to teach you things. Let's see. Yeah. All right. Some Juniper says maybe Disney IT couldn't figure out how to get the website to change prices on the tickets, so they just had to leave it the way they were. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I love it.
They didn't have the IT budget to change the prices.
That's right. They fired all the IT people, so they couldn't.
They laid off all those guys that did that.
That's great. Oh, Brian asked Hershey Park meetup, so I will reiterate again. I have picked out 3 weekends for Hershey Park meetups. So these are going to be official. These are going to be official WDWNT meetups at Hershey Park. June 5th and 6th is a Saturday and Sunday. July 30th and 31st, that's a Friday and Saturday. And August 6th and 7th, that's a Friday and Saturday. So all of those days are going to be official WDWNT meetups at Hershey Park. Don't tell Tom because I haven't gotten this approved yet. Those will be official WDWNT meetups. Maybe Tom will give me some swag that I can hand out. But they're kind of there are 2 days. There's either a Saturday Sunday or a Friday Saturday. I'll be there both days. And so even if you can only come one of the day, don't feel like you have to come both days because I'm just gonna pick a time on each day where we'll have a big meetup. Maybe it'll be at a lunchtime and we can all sit together at lunch or whatever. Brian wants to hold the gimbal, so he can hold the gimbal. So yeah, more details will come out, but at least you can mark these dates on your calendar for these Hershey Park meetups. Maybe I probably should put together a post and publish it on the website so that more people will know just than the people that watch this show. So yeah, that'll happen too. But you can mark the dates down. Those will be the Hershey Park WDWNT Northeast meetups. We might also, for people that if there's people that want to come and meet people but don't actually want to go in the park or whatever, I don't want to make people buy a park ticket just to come in and meet people if they're not actually going to go on any rides. So we might have meetups outside the park, like at Chocolate World or something. That's a possibility too. So all those things, we're still kind of formulating plans, but we'll get details out to you over the coming weeks. But so that's that. Don't forget, in case you missed it down here, the spring shirt sale at Carousel of Products is going on for another 5 hours yet. 20% off all shirts at the Carousel of Products, even our newest Donde Esta maintenance. And all the way back to the we have a couple left of all of the Secret Swiss Bobsled Training Facility in some of those early shirts. There might be a couple of the cast member shirts. Chocolate World is free and has a free ride. Yes. So Chocolate World is free, and there's a free ride, and it uses this ride vehicles that are amazingly almost identical to Journey into Imagination ride vehicles. So we will all be taking a group ride on the chocolate tour at Chocolate World. Anything else, Rob or Matt, before we sign off for the evening?
Nope, not tonight.
No, sir.
All right. Well, I have a special treat for everyone who stuck with us this far. You're going to get Spike the Bee. So, good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit the like button before you go. And here we go. Here's Spike the Bee for you all.
When I find myself at Flower and Garden, looking for some food to eat, I gotta get a spork with Spike the Bee. 58 pallets of unsold units standing right in front of me. Here for his 5th straight festival, Spike the Bee. Spike the Bee. Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee. Perfect for any food type, Spike the Bee. And while it's good for soup and chili, he's also perfect for poutine and Tupelo honey spoon bread, Spike the Bee. Plastic forks and spoons are wasteful, and they can't ever hope to be that versatile festival flatware, Spike the Bee. Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, yeah, Spike the Bee. For blood orange margaritas, Spike the Bee.
How do you eat that with a spork?
Spike the Bee. Spike the Bee, Spike the Bee, yeah, Spike the Bee. Disney hopes you'll finally purchase